This
Christina, just
conference will now be recorded.
one question. I need to start off with basic reporting first so that we get the basic reporting.
Yeah, so I think that let's go through this presentation because basic reporting, not basic reporting, everything has an appropriate tool for it based on the purpose. And so that's the point of this presentation, so that as a business, before you jump into making reports, there's a little bit of a decision-making process that needs to happen.
Perfect.
So, okay, so we're in the age of data. Today we have two different ways to look at data. There's reporting, and then there's analysis. Reporting is a summary or a list, things that we're used to seeing in this industry, an open order list, a pick ticket list, sales, an invoicing listing, where data is like shown to you on a flat on a piece of paper, and you're meant to highlight. It's meant to highlight when something's out of your tolerance or your threshold, but really there's no visualization to it, and there's no formulas. If you're lucky, there's sorting. Analysis is more like a meaningful insight that's used to monitor the health of the business, to make questions on why things happen, like why are we late on shipments, or why are we not making our goals. And sometimes we can even build a report to make a recommendation on what to do next. So all reporting comes from the same place, and that's raw data. So raw data will come from Bluecherry. It'll come from your financial softwares. It'll come from your CRMs, POS data from your trading partners, or even Excel. So all raw data then becomes reports. So no matter what system you're using, you'll have raw data that it gets transferred into reports, and eventually those reports can become analytics. So how do you distinguish a report from an analysis? So there's a few key things that you want to think about this report before you decide whether it's a report or an analysis. What are the tasks involved in generating that particular report? What is the frequency at which you need to review this data? What is the audience? What is the output, like what kind of document do you need? And what is the delivery method? So does this need to be emailed or not? So with tasks involved, it's very easy to distinguish a report from an analysis. If you're listing, like I said, like if you're pulling a list of orders or a list of invoices and then summarizing it to get, your month to date or your total inventory on hand, that's a report. An analysis is more where you're comparing this year to last year, where you're questioning your inventory availability, where you're interpreting, what is your PO lead time, and are you going to be making your ship dates. So frequency is a big determining factor on whether or not you go through the BI tool or you go straight to Bluecherry. The big reason being the data warehouse is only updated overnight. So any report that you have that has to be real time automatically does not belong in BI. Okay, so it's pivotal that when you're deciding, when you have a list of reports that you need to recreate in your new system, you at least have a pile where you separate, okay, these need to be real time and these can go in a BI tool. It's okay if the data is a day old. And then the next thing that you want to analyze is, who is the audience? Is this an executive? If it's an executive, it's not appropriate to send them a huge invoice listing or a huge inventory on hand listing and expect them to make the necessary decisions that it is required to run the business. An analyst, he might look at that type of data and find trends and create summary reporting, which is then brought up to an executive. An analyst would typically work more with a lot of data and summarize it for business decision makers. And then users are typically looking to complete a task throughout the day. So providing them a listing is completely appropriate because they typically need to address every single item in that list. And so like the reports that we're generating for them are exceptions to the things that they're supposed to be doing, calls to action, like maybe I need to update an order date or a backup that they're using to complete tasks. So like an accounting person will probably use an invoice report to reconcile like a client's AR. So in that case, a listing is appropriate. So what types of reports are there? There's descriptive reports that are telling us what happened in the past. It could be a minute ago or last year. Those are historical insights. Again, when we're looking in the past, a data warehouse might be more appropriate because the data is a day old and it doesn't matter because we're looking at the past. Predictive reports look at what could be happening in the future. And again, like if you're looking to next month or next year, the fact that you don't have necessarily all the information that was gathered that day in the business might not be critical, and therefore the report might be okay to take from the data warehouse, which is not up to date. And then prescriptive reports, we could talk about them later, but like these require special formulas or joining data from multiple shelves. So like if you're out of stock, maybe you want to join open availability, or if you're oversold, you might want to join production order WIP to create a prescriptive report. Okay, so here's the juice. The report outputs. What I have on the screen, and I know it's a little bit small, are examples of what we call flat reports. If you notice, it's customer types and then requested last year, booked this year. All of this data is flat and kind of the user has to go down a list to be able to find the information that they're looking for. What you have on the screen is the typical Blue Cherry output, which is a flat report that we're used to looking at. Up here we have the BCBI report builder that you can see data and actually move the data around interactively. You have a similar functionality in the Blue Cherry Inquiry Builder, where you can create views and the data is reported to you interactively on the screen, and you can manipulate the data to get, to either summarize or look at the details as needed. And then up down here, what we have is a report that is pulling data from the ERP, but it's static. It never changes. It'll always have the same format. So these static, flat, and canned outputs typically are what we will use to call a report. Then you have what's analytic outputs. Analytic outputs are usually key performance indicators. It's not so much getting into the weeds of like how much was actually invoiced as much as showing, how much of a total does something represent, or what is the trend that is going on. Here in this one, we could see that Macy's is our biggest customer because they're taking a visual block of the screen. Or in here, you could see that the department stores are taking up the most of our sales, or represent the largest portion of our sales. These are more appropriate typically for executives, because at the end of the day, I don't think that an executive is looking at the exact dollar amount of something. Sometimes they're just looking visually to see what the trends are to keep the business going. So when deciding what kind of a report we need to think about the delivery method. So the push delivery method typically means that the application is pushing the data out onto the computer monitor, into a printer, or to a mobile device. So this means that the system is triggered based on specific conditions to push out data to the user that's intended, and typically it's scheduled or emailed or printed directly to printer. Then we have the pull method, which means the data is sitting there waiting to be looked at, and it's available on demand, but the person who's going to look at the data is meant to go and search for it, not have it pushed to them. So again, these are all the things that we need to consider when we're trying to decide where data belongs. I'll give you an example. An open order report, as soon as the next order is entered, that piece of paper that you have is stale. It's not valid anymore. So it might be more appropriate to take the pull method for an open order report and use an inquiry, which is directly connected to the database and will allow you to interactively pull the most up-to-date data, rather than having the previous method, which is data pushed at a certain point in time. So then data management in Blue Cherry. So we have raw data. Typically, the next step from raw data is reports. After reports, we have analytics, and then insights and decisions, which are typically handled through a Power BI or some other data visualization tool. So what is a Blue Cherry report? Blue Cherry reports are out of the box. Well, let me rephrase this. We have about 500 out-of-the-box Blue Cherry reports available to you. Each one of those reports can be manually manipulated so that the content is more specific to the business. Within each report shell, we provide pre-packaged for you a specific amount of what we call business reporting objects or BROs. That are available to that shell. Typically, it's contextually, it makes sense. Like if you're in a production order shell, like you'll have the production order numbers, the production details, start and end dates, and we'll pull some style master info. So that's a great benefit to the report builder, that it's kind of customizable. The downside to it is whatever's in that shell is what's in that shell. If you need anything that's not in that shell, you would need to either know how to code in FoxPro to use our Bro Builder, or engage Blue Cherry in a modification to bring in that specific data set. So it's kind of flexible and inflexible in that way. So one of another feature within the report builder is that whatever field is available to report on is also available to filter on. And this is like heavily used when we're doing exception reporting, because then we'll start filtering, if this field is this and that field is that, then email this report. So I'm showing here both the filtering capabilities and both the export options. So we can export to PDF, Excel, CSV, XML. All of those things can be scheduled to run either on a daily, hourly, every minute, every business day basis. And that's how basically we manage our push method for report building. Any questions so far?
I'm good. Abhay, any questions? We're good, Christina.
Hello.
Oh, wait,
David.
you have one? Yeah.
In this report cell, if I need in a grouping section, if I want to fit our own field, then how we can add them? Suppose
Right,
if any cell you got.
So the question is, if we want to add our own filter,
How we
So,
filter?
so the filters that are available are all of the business reporting objects that are in that shell. So if you can report on it, you can also filter on it. If you happen to build a custom expression to report on, it also dynamically becomes a filter for you to filter on. And that's a tool called Bro Builder, and that's out of the box available to you. And again, the only skill set that's required to use Bro Builder is knowledge of how to write a FoxPro expression.
But if any field is available in particular cell, but that is not available in grouping, then can we add in grouping fields?
Yes, if you add it as a Bro onto your report, a custom Bro to your report, it becomes an available filter within that report.
Okay.
Okay.
maybe we'll test this tomorrow. We have two parts to this report training. Let's let Christina do for her flow. Thanks, Christina.
No problem. So the next way to develop a report within Blue Cherry is an inquiry. So I have an example of the inquiry on screen. You'll notice that the reporting objects are available almost like a pivot table in like the form of malleable items that can be interactively moved in front or behind each other to summarize in different ways on screen. And we have some light graphing options available within the Inquiry Builder. This isn't super heavily used, but the biggest benefit of using an inquiry is that if you run an open order report and decide that you are wanting to summarize it by customer type, you simply have to drag and drop that reporting object to our little holding area, and on screen you're going from summary to detail with all these different options available to you. So very much like a pivot table. Blue Cherry allows you to save as many versions as you want of the same inquiry, and so different roles within the business might have different views within this inquiry that are, I guess, like specific to them. So where before you might have had a couple of reports that the user used on a daily basis to manage their daily tasks, you might find that an inquiry is more appropriate and almost added benefit because you have a refresh option that every time you hit run, it grabs the most up-to-date data and you're working with it on screen. We also have automatic refreshing in intervals. You can have this inquiry every 5 seconds or every 5 minutes refresh with the most up-to-date Blue Cherry data. Excuse me. Within the inquiries, whatever you come up with is also available to export in both Excel and PDF. The way that I showed you with Report Builder, you can also send it direct to printer. And one of my favorite features of an inquiry is that there is right-click options that either takes you to related inquiries or sometimes to the related screens. So there's an inquiry that's very heavily used called Document Inquiry. When you right-click on that, it shortcuts you to the Style Master or to Sales Order Entry so that the user who is analyzing can then take an action. Any questions on inquiries?
No. Abhay,
It's good. It's good.
Okay, so then we get into like the science of the data warehouse. The data warehouse is made up of a base report package, which is pretty much your order to cash stuff. Sales related things, production related things, AR related things, and inventory related. I say things, it's, we have 500 reports in Blue Cherry. We maybe have like 12 in BCBI because we're able to collect more data in one shell in this view. Then we have the ability to provide custom data collection or custom expressions on a customer by customer basis. So I'll give you an example. Some customers use extender fields. So we don't collect that by default because it would, just weigh down the data warehouse to try to collect all this data that's not being used. So on a custom basis, we'll collect whatever extender fields that particular business had used. There are also modules that are not necessarily considered base Blue Cherry that you might not find in the, call it POP 1 or the base package of Blue Cherry, but can easily be turned on as needed. So we typically deliver kind of the vanilla BCBI data warehouse, and based on the implementation, we'll make tweaks, the modules that are particularly being used by that customer so that you have your full data set in the data warehouse. In addition to having the Blue Cherry data, you have the ability to store external data within the data warehouse. So that could be POS data, legacy system data, or maybe something that you're holding in Excel that doesn't really have a home right now. Any questions on that?
no.
Oh, good.
Okay. Okay, so within Blue Cherry BI, we have the first tool, which is the report building tool. This is very similar to the inquiry builder in that it's a pivot grid that pulls into it the business objects that are available to that shell. And to anyone who uses pivot tables very heavily, this is familiar to them. The data moves around, summarizes nicely, groups. In addition, so like the added benefit is that in addition to having the data that's reported from that particular shell, we can join any other shell onto this report. And this is using your SQL joins. So we can do a left join, inner join, outer join on the data that's being brought into this report here. And that gives us the ability, based on your needs, to either view all the data that matches or exclude data that doesn't match, or just bring everything in. I just want to see it, like the whole data set. So as we get into training, this will make a little bit more sense, but the example I typically give people is sometimes the company is interested in looking at sales and looking at returns, but only returns for the things that they sold. So you would probably do a left join instead of a full join in that case, and it's just a dynamic way of summarizing your data and being a little bit more economical with the resources that it takes to develop a report. So if all else fails, if the data that you need is not all available in one shell in Blue Cherry, if the inquiry doesn't give you the ability to summarize in the way that you're looking at, or give you the format that you're looking for, if for some reason the data that you're in that is in BCBI is not conducive to a report, because maybe the shells are both vertical and horizontal and they don't pivot nicely. Like as a last, like Hail Mary pass, there's the SQL Server reporting services where we can develop a custom report that's specific to you. It can run dynamically with filters that are specified on that report, and it's provided to you in the form of a URL which you can insert into your command center as an applet and run at will. So added benefit outside of the data warehouse is that this will call your database directly and give you real-time information. I've provided for you an instance where a report is more appropriate in SSRS than it is in the report builder in the BI tool. In this particular instance, I have design development header data. I have sample evaluation details, which are a completely different table. And then I have production order information all laid out flat. And the reason we went to SSRS here was because first we had a listing, and then we pivoted the sample evaluation data. And then again, we wanted to go back and repivot the production data. So a report builder, any BI tool would not be able to do this for you. So SSRS is the most appropriate tool for that. Then we get into dashboards. The dashboards help summarize and present in a visual manner the data that's been collected and summarized in the report builder. So always the first step will be to build a report in PCBI, and if you need visualization, you would then take that report, push it to Power BI or your whatever data visualization tool you chose, and build your dashboards based on that. The key user or the most typical user for this is an executive looking for a quick summary or something to pull up on their mobile app that like flashes for them where they stand. And typically what happens is that you take individual dashboard items and put them together contextually to come up, or individual reporting items and put them together contextually to come up with a dashboard. This is an example of a sales dashboard where I'll see, who my biggest sellers are, what customer type makes up the most of my business, the selling trends, and if I really, really need to see the dollars and cents, I have the ability to view this year over last year on screen. So all of this to get you to the kind of like the point of this presentation, which is how do we pick the right tool? I've gone through all the tools that are available, the kind of questions that you would ask when you're about to build a report. And this is a little decision tree that for every report that you have, you should probably go through and decide where this belongs. So the first question we ask ourselves is this data needed in real time? If yes, you have to go directly to the ERP. And if it is needed in real time, is this a static report? Is it a piece of paper that someone's going to walk around with? Or do they need to work with it on screen to come up with data? So if it's static, you should go to the report builder. If not, an inquiry is appropriate. So once you're in the report builder, the next question is, how do I get this to my user? If it's a pull method, they'll get it from the report launcher and run it as needed from report launcher. If it's a push method, then we need to come up with a list of filters that are appropriate and then schedule the report to run at the frequency desired using the output desired, be it PDF or Excel or whatever it is. Then let's go back. Is it needed in real time? If not, BI is a good tool for it. Is it static? If it's static, we can use either the SSRS reporting tool or the Excel tool that's available as an export method from BI. And if it's not static, if they need to work with it on screen, then you want to probably use the pivot cube or export to an Excel pivot table from the BI tool. Then what is your delivery method? If it's push, the only way right now is through SSRS, where that's the only way that we can schedule a BI report to be sent out to users. If it's pull, meaning that the user is going to request the data as needed, then either we'll provide for you a report link that the user can hit and get the most up-to-date report, or you'll develop a Power BI dashboard. And that, if you have any questions, was the presentation, and I kind of just wanted to walk you through that before we dove into the whole exercise of making reports.
I have one question. So we want to actually, when we're ready for this, for the Power BI, we want to
Mhm.
put that on our SharePoint site. So our company's SharePoint site. Are you guys using Flow, Microsoft Flow, for anything like that, or how does that
No,
work?
no. So when a report is all set up, we have an option to publish, quote unquote, publish the report, and that generates a URL, which is only. You guys are in the cloud, right?
Wait, say that one more time. Sorry.
Are you guys on the cloud?
We are. Yeah, we're on Azure.
Yeah. So when this URL is created, it's created within Azure, and the only time a user can run this is if they're logged into the cloud. So if you want to launch it from your Bluecherry command center, it will pop up as either a report inside Bluecherry, or you can set up to pop up as a report outside of Bluecherry. Either way, it's just a URL that launches the report in Explorer.
So how do your customers, do they publish their like KPIs on their own SharePoint or no?
When they are not hosted, yes, because then as long as someone's at work or VPN'd in, then they can use the URL.
Got it.
Your
Are you
challenge is
familiar
that
with?
you're on the cloud.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Are you familiar with Flow, Microsoft Flow?
I'm not familiar with Microsoft Flow, no.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. This is a great presentation. Abe, any questions, and then we can start the next part.
No, we can start the next point. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so I heard that you wanted to get started, kind of jump into doing reports based on this
Wh-
presentation.
Yeah. I'm
Which
sorry. Go ahead.
which reporting method? I know that I'm the BI person, but after having watched that presentation, are you finding that you still want to do most of your reporting in BI?
I think we want to do this. We want to start with the basics for reporting. So look at the shells, the base shells, and just
Sure.
we have just a couple questions. Thank you.
So I'm so sorry, I hadn't logged in yet. Oh, which pod are you on? Do you know?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Do you know which pod you're on?
No, I
Like,
don't.
you don't know if you're like Cloud 2 or Cloud 3?
I can tell you in a second. I believe it's Cloud 3, Web 3.
Yeah. Just 1 second while I log in. Mm,
BC Web 3.
yeah, it's not letting me in. I just changed my password, so I'm sure it's disliking me right now. There's pod 2, BC Web 3.
So
Okay.
what pod? Okay, good.
Um,
So we know pretty much the basics of our reporting. We just had maybe if you want to just breeze through that, the basics.
yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm having trouble actually logging in to the cloud. I actually think that particular pod you can't even reach through RDP.
Well, we don't have any data on ours, so if you just want to pop into yours.
Oh, okay. So what kind of a report are you looking for so that I can navigate to it?
Abe, want to go over your questions?
Report building on any sales order.
Any sales order? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna log into our development website. It has terrible data on it, but at least I can get into the report builder. So while I log in, you'll find that the report builder has what are called header shells and detail shells. So it's important for you. Have you gone through sales order entry training at all yet?
Yeah, we've done that, and we're pretty familiar with how the header and detail works. We just
Okay.
had, if you just breeze through that part, and we have a couple specific questions that we're going to ask. And then what I'd
Sure.
like to do is maybe, once we're done today's session, this will probably satisfy the rest of today. Tomorrow, we'll probably email you a couple other questions so you can prep. And then the last part of it, we'd like to do maybe some Microsoft Power BI.
Sure.
That'd be great. Thanks. This is excellent presentation. Thank you. You're spot on detailed.
No problem. I heard you remembered me from Visual.
How are those guys doing?
He's doing good.
I'll tell you exactly what I told Maria. I thought you were the most brilliant person I've met.
Thank
You
you.
really grasp detail, you grasp the business, and you grasp the technology. I think you're extremely well-rounded.
Thank you. I think you'll understand if you see like I've bounced around in every department.
I think they pull you a little too much because they see your potential. I still talk. He's actually a really good friend of mine. Do you remember Donald?
Donald
He
from
was-
Kim Siegel.
Yeah. He's actually he's tough. We're actually really good friends. We've been really good friends for years. He started his own mint companies in Florida now. He's doing pretty well.
Mint?
He's doing CBD mints, and he's like
Oh, that's so funny.
he's going crazy with it now. His sales are through the roof.
That's funny. Does he need an ERP?
He's
We're just
gonna need
waiting.
He's gonna need some Power BI, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting for this to load up. I'm so sorry for the delay. I'm probably going to navigate you over to the sales order detail shell and build a very simple report. Again, like these become out of box kind of canned. So I doubt that you'll have to build one from scratch. You probably would just need to look at one that's already there and maybe add or remove some merchandise groups as needed.
Yeah, why don't you if you pull that up, and then Abe has a couple questions he'll probably ask.
Yeah, I don't know why this is taking so long to log in. I might just log into something else. This thing doesn't have data. Let's see. So you stayed in is this your industry, the housewares industry?
Yeah, perfect.
I'm just logging into somewhere else because this is taking forever to log in, and you don't have any data on your side either. Here we go. All right, so just narrating what I'm.
Yeah, we only see your computer-generated solutions. It says welcome, C Polo. There you go. There we go. Oh, you were just there. Now we lost it. Now I see a tent with stars.
Okay.
Now we're good. Thanks.
There we go. How do I change my monitor on this thing?
Now I see report building 102. And now we see Blue Cherry.
Okay, there we go. So, sorry, this is my bigger screen. So, report builder. So, when you type report, you get both the launcher and the builder. The builder is obviously where you create your reports. The launcher is where users will typically kick off their reports. Depending on how you want to set up your security settings, some people might not have options to access report builder, but they will have options to access report launcher. So within the report builder, you have all of these shells related to different modules within the ERP. The sales order management module is available here. And out of the box, we provide, looks like 10-ish, 15-ish reports. So I'll just go to the sales order
details.
Detail vertical sizes. Okay, so look, it looks like they just deleted everything and created their own. Let's go detail base. There we go. And here they'll do a daily pig ticket register. This looks like one that comes out of the box. And what you'll see is that these are the business reporting objects that we pre-selected for you as part of this report. In this side, you have 1,109 additional items available to you to report on. What you also have is the ability to set the width that each one of these particular reporting objects will take up on the screen. So if you're intending on this being a printout and you need to kind of shrink things and expand things, maybe decide that something should be wrapped just to make sure that it prints on one page across, you have that available here. What you'll see is that we list for you the number of characters that that particular field is can carry, but based on your business rules, you might use something different. So as an example, this particular report has customer name only taking up 15 characters. I can make it wrap around if it's more than 15 characters, or if it's something like a style number where you know that you're consuming only like 12 characters out of the available 50, you can preset it to be 12 characters. In addition to setting the width of the columns, you have the ability to format the columns as needed. So maybe I want my customer name to be red instead of black, or I want to make it bold, italic, or underlined. These are all available here. And for anything that's value, you have the option to include the comma separator or to indicate that it is a currency. And you can say that it's blank when it's 0, which is helpful on Save Ink if you're printing everything.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sure.
If I want to know about the open quantity, here is the order quantity, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you can know that for the open quantity, which field we can use here?
Okay.
Any order is open. Okay.
Just so you know, I'm using my keyboard. I click into one of these fields and I'm using my keyboard to type to see if I can get to a particular business object. Okay. So before I even find the business, I'll explain to you that within Blue Cherry, you have an order amount, let's say 100 units. And as the order goes through the different stages of its life, the actual transaction has different stages as well. So when an order goes into pick, you'll now have certain units under the O stage and certain units under the P stage. So there's opened and pick. And then the last stage is invoice, which is the I stage. So to answer your question, how do I know how much is open? You would need to find a report that tells for you what stage the order is at, and either filter for the correct stage, or here order line status. Here in this case, they're looking for picked, and you can list the two which people usually consider opened or unshipped, which is O for opened and P for picked. In this case, I'll get a report that lists for me everything that is unpicked and picked.
The field is same, order quantity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quantity field name is quantity, order quantity.
So order quantity was 100 units. And
yeah, my question is for order quantity, pick quantity, and open quantity, we are using the same field.
Exactly.
If you go to the
Exactly. So if I go to this layout and put the order line status in and order quantity, that same 100 units will now be separated into 3 lines based on the status of the order. So originally there were 100 units. There's 20 that were invoiced. There's 20 that were picked. That leaves another 60 that are in status O. And this is where, as a business, you have to make a decision. What is open to me? Is it truly unpicked items, or is it unpicked and unpicked items? Because then, if that's the case, that's when a custom expression is needed to add these two up to make unshipped. And usually that's when you want to go to BI.
You okay with that, Abhay? Abay, it sounds like we lost Abay. Hold on one second.
But David, your understanding? that
Yeah,
we
no,
have
I get it. He's going to log on in a second. You can continue. Go ahead. No, I get it.
So we have those 3 stages. Out of the box, we don't have anything that says like unpicked and unshipped together.
Got it.
So that's when someone would go to the BI tool and add these 2 up in a custom expression and come up with the unshipped versus shipped quantities.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the case for you, but sometimes people put things in pick like a month before it's even meant to ship, and so
Yeah, we're going to do quite a bit of that. Pack and hold, pick and hold, or at least reserve the inventory. I think Abay just got back on. Abay, you there? He lost his connection. He's back now. Sorry.
Abay, was that question so shocking you fell off the call?
I think he can hear us. He just can't talk yet. There he is. I see him
David,
now.
sorry,
Abay,
my network was disconnected.
Christina asked you, was that question so shocking you fell off the call?
Sorry, my network was distracted. I was distracted. Okay.
All right, so
Please repeat again. Okay. Actually, my question is that want to show the orders whose order quantity is open. That was not allocated or that was not picked. Then only here I found the field only the quantity, order quantity.
So order quantity will be divided automatically by the system into the correct status. So you want a report that lists the order status and the order quantity, and you'll see that it'll be split up into open, picked, and invoiced.
Okay, if we required in any single reports, open, pick, and ship, then how we can get them?
So here in this sales order detail report, I'm just going to start a new one. Order number, pick number, line, order line status. Man, here we are. Order line status.
Okay.
Line number, or we know whatever here, and then you want your order quantity like this. And so you'll see the order number, the invoice number, the cancel number, the line number of the order, and then the status. So if it's picked, it'll say P. If it's open, it'll say O. If it's invoiced, it'll say I. And it'll tell you the quantity based on the status.
Okay, that means if we need this quantity in a column fields, basically it will repeat on the rows. If for a single order and for single line, if we want to check the pick, open, and ship, then we get the 3 rows, right, in the report.
Correct. So
there is any way can we put?
This is why, though, an inquiry builder sometimes is better for the reports we're used to seeing on paper. So I'm just going to take sales order. Oh, I'm so terrible. Base inquiries. Oh, here, sales order inquiries by style. So here, I have the same reporting objects, right? I have the same filters, but when I run this, what I'm getting is the ability to, like a pivot table, move my data into different areas that's more conducive for like looking at it on screen. So of course I did the worst thing that you're never supposed to do. I didn't filter, but it and then it yells at me. Why did you do that?
Lots of thinking for search. Okay.
Are you guys all in New York?
Yeah. Abay's running a daycare center in the background.
Oh yeah. So here's this field that we're talking about.
Right.
Dave, can you mute your
Yeah.
Thanks.
So Abay, here's this field that we were talking about, and
yes.
And now you have, in this inquiry, you even have open quantity, pick quantity, invoice quantity, cancel quantity available to you.
Yeah.
Distinctly, you didn't have to, do it the way that I had just explained. But what I'm explaining is you can do this. You could have had a field called quantity, and it would have come here and separated the quantities as needed. And just to show you some of the functionality on screen, like I can.
Okay, that means we can do in inquiry builder, not in report, right?
Correct, and that's out of the box. It's you get it for free, and remembering my days in customer service, I would think that a screen like this is much more useful than a flat report to be able to manage day-to-day orders.
And I forget, if we build this for the group, how can we save this so that the group is able to use it? For example, the whole production or operations team. So I just have to build it once?
So there's an inquiry builder and a report builder. They both include this top section over here, which allows you to designate like an example user that this report is being built for. And then when you say what type of report it is, you can say it's a corporate report, which means that everyone has access to it. A group report, which then looks to your example user and only lets people of the same security group view the report, or a user-specific report, which only lets this user view the report and people who are system administrators. So both inquiries and report builders do the same thing.
Okay. Go to the section, grouping section in report builder.
Yeah, sure. So the grouping section right here.
Yeah, here only 5 fields is there, right? Now I want to this report group by as a customer. I want to show the report, all the orders group by the customer. How I can add here fields?
Here on the lower right-hand side, I have something that allows me add and remove the sorting levels for my report. So if this is not appropriate, I can add, customer.
Yeah, that's the main cost.
And then if I want this to be a summary report, there's the summary option right there.
And how can you use the aggregate functions like group by the customer, and I want to show the total quantity of the customer?
So by default, if you're summarizing, it'll aggregate any of the value fields that are on the report. Yeah.
Okay. Numeric values automatically it will aggregate, right?
Correct. And it's controlled by the subtotal thing. So if I don't want to subtotal it, I can uncheck it.
Okay. If I click on the subtotal, it automatically aggregate, right?
Correct.
And if somewhere, like in profit margin, we need the average, not the some functions, or somewhere we need require the maximum in aggregate functions, then it automatically pick the aggregate functions, or we have to do some?
In that case, it's probably more appropriate for you to use the BI tool.
Okay. Then you have to use BI tool. Right. Okay. Go ahead.
So filters here.
Yeah, we understand. Yeah, I understand. Filter, advanced filters. It's a good thing.
This will save you
a
lot of paper. Suppress banner. Every time you run a report, the first page is a summary of all the settings that were used to create that report. When you suppress the banner, you don't print that page anymore. Then, by default, every time you run a report, it runs as a tab onto the screen. If you want to reuse the tab, if you run again, this is what this checkbox does. Instead of opening a new screen, it just uses the same screen. Just trying to see any. Here's the paper size and orientation if you choose to use that. And I think that's the important stuff to know. When you run a report, you have two options. Let me get back into here. You have print preview and interactive preview. The print preview generates a PDF of the report kind of as a on-screen visual, like check before it prints. Interactive preview actually provides you a way to kind of page through and do a find on the data if you're just looking for a piece of information. then your export function or your export options are all of the ones that are listed here. So depending on, so it's something that I should mention, like out of the box, we provide CSV files of pretty much all the data that's available in the system. So if you're trying to take data out to put into somewhere else, it's pretty easy for you to build your own extracts and drop them into the folders that are needed. All of the export options are available within the email. So if you choose to email someone directly from the system, you can choose the export option here. And lastly, the scheduler. Anywhere where you see the ability to schedule, you're asking BlueCherry to run this for you at a specific time. And so the scheduling frequency options are every minute, hour, day, business days, weekly, monthly, end of month, yearly. So when you choose an increment of time, you can choose the starting and the ending date that report will run, which is very important because sometimes our clients say, oh, you know, I had this like AR report running once a month. All of a sudden it stopped running. The first question we ask you is, did it expire? So this time area indicates the time of the day that the report will run. So as a best practice, if you have 5, 6 reports that are running first thing in the morning, you typically want to collect these onto a batch, which runs concurrently so that they don't step on each other on the task monitor, so that, you know, once one's done, the task monitor tries to run the other one instead of having them crash into each other and potentially not run at all. You do have the option to export as a file directly into a specific folder. So if you have an integration, this is a good place to default the folder. And
What was that again? Show me where that was.
Here in the file section. Yeah, and I don't know if you set up sync back, but you can default your folder here in the format. So I use this heavily. Like I drop it as a CSV into this folder, and it through sync back it just comes locally to whatever folder it is that you're trying to use locally. The archive feature within the file output truncates a date at the end of the file, so that if ever you run the report again, you're not really getting rid of or overwriting the report. You're just creating another copy of it. Okay, and then cancel. So any questions on report building in BlueCherry?
All right, so Abhay, you had a couple questions. Were they all answered? How to add field in the group tab?
Yeah. Now we can add the group fields.
You had 6 questions. Were they all answered?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
One more question. If any field is not there, suppose that if any field is not there in layout, and we need particular that value, then how we can get them? Can we get them in report builder or?
Okay. There's a separate screen altogether called Bro Builder. So in Bro Builder, you would go to the report shell, specific report shell that you're trying to add onto. And when you click into the Bro Builder, you're given the ability to name a custom field, identify the data type of that custom field, and using this expression builder, you can write a FoxPro expression that creates that business reporting object. So in this case, it looks like they took total units divided by whatever times 100. Because they added that Bro onto the shell, dynamically the system also adds it as a filter.
Okay. Then we put our own field name. Okay, it's just like as a FoxPro. Your expression builder is using as FoxPro language, right?
Correct.
Okay. Good. So here we can expression is basically it's the calculate the fields, right?
Can you repeat, please?
Expression builder, we can calculate the fields, like we can get the gross profit or divided by anything like these things only.
Correct. So it supports any expression. I think the hardest part the 2 hardest parts is, 1, knowing FoxPro, 2, knowing the ERP well enough to be able to correctly name the database objects. So I know personally I don't do this because I don't know the database objects well enough, but I have coworkers who are very comfortable writing these expressions. Whatever field is available in that cell is it's pre-populated for you down here, and you can just double click and bring
I hope
data.
I hope related fields, all the related fields are available in the cell, right?
Correct.
Because sometimes in orders, if we say that we are putting the credit card information, and that information obviously we put somewhere else, right? And we need into the report, the same order report. And if suppose credit card number we required in the report, or any CVV number, and that field is not available in a cell, then can we do in this report builder? Or
yes. So again,
if fields is not available
in Blue Cherry, the report builder has out of the box however many business reporting objects that are available. That's it. It's like
that's why I'm saying maximum.
Yeah, but let's say you want something like a credit card number, which is not on this list, and you know FoxPro, and you know the database. You can build an expression which pulls that data into this report shell for you, without having to engage CGS. You just build it yourself.
Okay, that field we can build. Because that field, so credit card information we can build here in Expression Builder.
I guess. I mean, I've never tried it. I'll give you the generic. This is what it's supposed to do. If you can name the database object in a FoxPro expression, it'll pull it in.
Right, this is good. Do you have any more questions, Abe?
Yeah, David. It's good.
Okay. All right, so
Thanks,
Christina, let's do this. I'm going to talk with Abe a little bit later, and then we'll do any more questions to prep for tomorrow. Can we get into a little bit of forms also building? Would that be your realm, Christina? Maybe tomorrow?
No, unfortunately not. And I actually don't think you guys have I know you can build labels, but I don't think you can build forms.
We're not allowed to build our own forms? I thought we brought that.
So.
No. All right, so let's
double check with your PM. I've never heard of it.
Okay. All right, so we'll prep for tomorrow. Any questions? If not, we'll just do the recap for the first part, and then we'll get into Power BI tomorrow.
Wonderful. I'll send you a copy of this PowerPoint deck, okay?
Thank you. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.